How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Recycled Primates, where I want to do one last video on the subject of effect microphones for people who have never built one before but want to. And this is going to be for the novices. For those who want to see how simple this is, we're going to build a microphone and then we're going to test it out. All right. And if you have not seen my video on the effect microphones that I use, whether I bought them or built them, there's a link in the description below. But in that video, I said the simplest way to start is simply by ripping the driver out of a pair of busted headphones. And then I showed you this PVC microphone where I literally took the driver out of a pair of consumer headphones, got some PVC pipe and components, and made this microphone. And you can hear this microphone in action on Guitar Cab, link in the description below. But I also, as a reference, held up this pair of Fostex T20RP MKII headphones. And I was like, I want to build a microphone out of this. I want to see what it'd be like. And what better thing to do than do it in a video, share it with you, show you just how easy it is. So that will inspire you to take that plunge and get your feet wet in this kind of creative endeavor. And we're going to build this microphone. We're going to try it out on Guitar Cab and some other things and hear what this sounds like. But what I want to do is I've already taken one of the cups off, as you can see. And here's the driver. It's mounted to this plate, right? That's what goes up towards your ear. You have your red and your white wire. And on the board there's a plus sign by the red wire and a negative sign or minus sign by the white wire showing you positive and negative. Every component that I'm using in this, I already had. This is costing me nothing to do other than time. And because some of you may not have access to some of the equipment I have, like a CNC router, I want to do this as easily as possible to inspire you to look around your house and see how you can build something with things that you already have. So you already have a plate that the driver element is mounted to. You already have a screen here. Why am I not going to use this? Doesn't make sense not to use this. So we're going to use this, and we're going to use the backing cup. And this little recess, we're going to cram with cotton cloth. I'm going to use an old sock, and I'm just going to cut it up and stick it in there. And then we have the hole in the center here where the headband mounted to. We're going to use that to run the wires off this out there. And then we got two screw holes on the sides and one up top that we're going to use there to mount this cup to the body, which we are going to make out of this spare piece of 1x2. Let's jump over to my workbench and let's get started. All right, so I have the screws that I found for this. I'm just going to go ahead and get them into the cup because these are bigger than the holes. So I want to get these essentially threaded. That's really kind of what we're doing, is threading these holes. Yep, I actually found some black paint, so I did a weird misting just to give it like a cool texture and contrast. We'll see how this dries up and then clears. All right, so we are back at my messy ass workbench. So we're gonna get to assembly here. And yeah, first things first, I've got some mic wire here, and we are going to feed that through the body from the top because I did a little scallop there to make sure that it was just easier to get this right in there like that. And you just cram it down until this comes out the other end. Pull. So we're gonna feed our wire right through here. Booyah. Okay. Then we're gonna get this screw started. All right, so now that we have the cup on and we have our wire in place, we can actually start wiring this up. And again, you can see here, the red wire is your positive and the white wire is your negative. I've already gotten the ends clipped like that. So we'll be able to get things going here. You do need wire cutters. And you don't have to get expensive ones. I recommend something like this, these Kleins. These are not super expensive. You can get them at any hardware store. I got mine, I think, at Home Depot. And they're really good quality. I always go like one notch. If I know this is like, say, 26 gauge, I'll go to 24 on the wire clipper, or stripper, I should say. And that's just to ensure that I'm not cutting into the actual copper wires. But I want a fair amount of exposed wire here so that I can wrap it around. Need my trusty razor blade. And we're going to cut off a fair amount of this jacketing. You don't want to press hard or anything like that. You just kind of want to let it slide. And you want to just kind of rotate the wire. The ground is a wrapping of wire around the outside, which you'll see in a second. And if you're light enough with your cuts, you can start to feel the knife drag on the wire. That's why you want to go very slowly, because this knife, this razor blade, is sharp enough to actually cut the wire, and you don't want to do that. So don't be afraid to just score it and then just kind of work it a little bit to snap that PVC or that jacketing. And then there you go. Now we just get our copper wire here, our grounding wire. We just kind of unravel it, and then we want to twist it. We can always cut it shorter if we need to. So now that we have that good to go, now since we have a white wire on our XLR cable and we have a white wire on our driver, I'm going to connect white to white and black to red. Okay. And then what we want to do here is get our heat shrink. We want to cut a decent amount because we want this to cover our connection. So we're going to slide this onto our wires first. It's just easier that way now, you know, before we get any copper exposed. And we're going to find here. It's too big. There we go. So now that we have our soldering iron good to go, I have it heated up. I've got my solder and I've got this. So we're going to get this wired together, and we're going to start with the white wire, or our negative. I'm just going to put the wires together and twist them so that we have a nice solid connection there where the wires are physically wrapped. What we're going to do is we're going to tend the soldering iron tip by melting just a little bit of solder onto it. And then we're going to touch our soldering iron to the wire, heat it up, and put some solder on the other end, and that's going to let the heat, the solder is going to flow towards the heat. So that's going to put a nice casing around wires. And we'll do the same thing over here with the red wire. Just lightly touch it. There you go. And that's all soldered up and ready to go. So next I'm going to slowly and gently push that in. Okay. And then I am going to back this screw out just a little bit. And we're going to push that even more in. And I'm going to wrap this wire around that screw. And then crank that screw down. Not heavily, just enough to hold that wire in place. And there you have it. And now this can easily get put back in. But before we do that, I want to carefully place this in there. And this is just a piece of an old sock. Now we can get our screws back in place. And there we go. Our mic is basically assembled. Now we just got to get our XLR connector onto the cable, and then we got our ear pad to go back over. All right, so this is the barrel of the XLR connector. You have a set screw that goes here, and you have a set screw on here as well. This is for the rubber strain relief, okay? You can see you have little metal plates inside there. When you assemble this, you'll then screw down that set screw, and that will pinch against the metal plates and the rubber, and that will give a strain relief so that you have a stronger support between the actual pins and the cable coming out, and that way it will hopefully prevent your solder joints from breaking. Now on the actual pins you have here, you have pin 1, pin 2, and pin 3. They're actually numbered. So when you flip this around to the solder cups, pin 1 is your ground, pin 2 is your hot, so we're going to do the black wire here, and pin 3 is your neutral, so we're going to do the white wire there. So ground, black, white, or ground, positive, negative. So let's go ahead and get this assembled. This is why we didn't cut our wire here. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to run our rubber strain relief over the cable first. And I do have this that I'm going to put on the back of the microphone as a strain relief for the cable. The next thing to do is we're going to have to put the barrel on next. And the reason we got to put the barrel on next is because if you look at the front of the barrel here, you'll see that little groove, right? See that little groove right in there? That is for that notch, okay? That is the only way that this assembles. That notch goes into that groove, ensuring that this set screw here can line up with this hole. And that way, when this gets put together, you then will take a screwdriver and you'll actually back that screw out. When you're loosening this to take that connector out, you're going to screw downward. And then when you want to lock this in place, you screw outward. The set screw does not detach from the the pins. It will actually just sit in there and hold a nice lock. So that's why this goes on next. Just do a nice little pressure fit till it's joined. And we can go ahead and put that in just enough so that it doesn't slip, but we don't want to tighten it yet because we still want to be able to move that connector around, or that barrel around. So the next thing we got to do is solder this and prep our wire. Of course, prepping our wire comes next. So you can just kind of do a rule of thumb and say, okay, I want to start right about here. That way I'll have an inch to work with. So now we have this ready to go. We have our black wire for our positive and our white wire for our negative. So we're going to cut a decent amount, right? Just like that. That way we got a good bit of wire that's going to be able to go into that cup. And then do the same thing over here. So now we're going to get to soldering. And soldering XLRs is extremely boring. Now that our soldering iron is up to temperature, we're going to go ahead and prep pin 1. The reason I'm going to prep pin 1 is because there's more mass to the ground wire, which is going to give us a better hold. So we're just going to heat that cup up. We're going to fill it with solder, like so. And then we're literally just going to stick, once the solder is melted, we're just going to stick our wire in there. Let it cool. Sometimes takes a second for it to cool. So, but there you go. Now we're going to do our pin 2. So now we'll melt this. Sometimes putting a little extra solder in here is what's going to help. All right, so now we are all soldered up. We have pin 2 as our positive, pin 3 as our negative, and pin 1 as our ground. So next, it's time to get this connector fully assembled. And then we're just gonna back that out. There we go, that's in place. And then we're gonna tighten down these 2 set screws and ensure that we have this locked in. We're going to put this over here. I know this doesn't look pretty, but we're not going for pretty. We are going for quick, easy, and functional. Clip that into place, and now we got just a little bit of strain relief there. And with our nice rounded off handle here, our mic clip holds it perfectly, cable's nicely out of the way, and this gives us plenty of mounting options. All right, now with our ear pad back on, we have a completed microphone. Let's go test it out and see what it sounds like. And there you have it. That is how easy it is to build a cool microphone out of a busted pair of headphones. And of course, the crappier the headphone, the crappier the sounding microphone. And that may be what you're looking for. When you get a crappy pair of headphones or even a crappy set of computer monitors, you'll usually pull out something that looks like this. And something like this is what I used in this. And a crappy driver paired with the acoustically unpleasant sound of PVC pipe is what created the cool AM radio sound effect that I get from this mic. Again, if you have not heard this mic in action, check out the link in the description below for the demo. But when it comes to the T20RP, well, honestly, when it comes to the TRP series of headphones from Fostex, they're actually really good headphones. So I am not surprised that this ended up sounding really good. I like it on guitar cab quite a bit, especially more, back from the guitar cab, because I think that this adds a little bit too much mid, kind of honkiness to it. But I also really like this on the bottom of a snare drum. I think that with it being thinner sounding, it adds enough of a cut and articulation to really let that snare come to life without compromising the integrity of the sound of the snare and distorting or breaking up or anything like that. So this was a fun project that turned out something really cool that I'm probably going to really enjoy using a lot on bottom of snare and on guitar cab. And I appreciate your time and you joining me in this journey. And I hope that I've simplified this for you and showed you just how easy it is to make something like this. So if you've never done it before, you now know how to, and you can really dive in and experiment to bring your music to a whole new level and bring more life to it with something that you created yourself. Even if you do electronic-based music and say you go for something crappier like this and you just solo up your drums and you play them back through your studio monitors and you record it that way for a cool mono AM sound for an intro or a breakdown, there's a lot of cool things like that you can do even with electronic-based music. And honestly, running your virtual instruments through analog gear makes a world of difference. So never hesitate to keep experimenting and trying a whole lot of cool stuff. If you have made it this far, I definitely appreciate you for your time. You are a rare breed, and I thank you. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, and all that good stuff. Notification bell, hype, blah. And remember that you can, in fact, use a Scotch-Brite to scratch your records, but you will not get the same results as if you use a turntable. Until the next video, take care.